You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband, I don't mean him, though I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women, and welcome back to the Why Smart Women podcast. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode where I can hear the cutlery, David. It's all right. It's David's eating his dinner while I'm trying to, change society. It's all right, David, you enjoy your dinner. Anyway, where Kate Thomas, the fabulous pharmacist, discussed that as soon as there is an onset of winter, everybody rushes down to the chemist or to the health food shop and tries to buy something that is going to boost their immune system, which is a completely and utterly pointless exercise. If you want to boost your immune system, what you need to do is get adequate sleep, exercise, try and eat properly, and get vaccinated. And speaking of getting vaccinated, my guest today is the fabulous Martin Bella, my very good friend from Queensland, and we are going to chat about vaccines and all other things related to that because we've had a very interesting week, haven't we, Martin?
We certainly have, and I'm glad you called me fabulous. I would like to draw everyone's attention to this. I'm truly fabulous. Now, look, it's been, interesting's one word. I think it's tragic in a lot of ways. I had a friend approach me. She's got a master's in infectious diseases. Approached me a couple of months ago about the situation that was evolving up in the Northern Territory with regard to diphtheria. Now, and she said, why isn't it in the media? And we did our best to pump it up. It's only a couple of weeks ago now that the media's picked up on it.
Why do you think they were so slow, Martin?
Oh, look, it's a number of things. It's because, okay, I'll go out there. It's because it's in people that don't matter to most people. It's because it's in people that are in remote communities, way to buggery out in the bush, that are seen as not as important as people in major centres. So that might be confronting for some people, but that's the honest truth of it.
Well, I unfortunately don't think that is inaccurate. I think we definitely have certain stratas of society that we automatically endow more importance on, and others that we think people are just absolutely disposable. It's very, very disappointing. And I was listening to Raina McIntyre, Martin, and I think I sent you the link to her. She was talking to the ABC about why why diphtheria. For the people that are not Australian, that are our overseas listeners, the Northern Territory is at the top of Australia, and we have Indigenous communities up there that in some degree live in crowded housing. That's right, isn't it, Martin? And that causes the spread of the disease. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, it's actually a highly contagious disease. It starts out, it can be either respiratory or a skin disease. So it's actually hard to recognise early on. And there are a lot of other skin diseases up in these remote communities. But when it goes from being a skin disease to a respiratory disease, it can be fatal. It's not a pretty disease, especially in young children and immunocompromised people. And a lot of these people in these remote communities are immunocompromised for a number of reasons.
And so we've got an Indigenous population that is immunocompromised, that do live in often quite crowded conditions. And then on top of that, we very unfortunately And this is absolutely been voiced by Raina McIntyre, who is a specialist in infectious diseases. She's an epidemiologist, I'm pretty sure. Falling vaccination rates absolutely contribute to the rise of these diseases. Now, diphtheria, correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the first vaccines that you get, correct?
Yes, it's absolutely shocking, a shocking disease in young children.
Yeah.
But I actually saw one of the matriarchs of the anti-vax movement talking about how a high proportion of the people that had or caught diphtheria had been vaccinated. Like, it's true, but it's an absolutely nonsense statement when you consider it's a bit like me going out today, getting sunburned, and coming back and saying, well, that bloody sunscreen I put on a week ago didn't work. I got sunburned.
Right.
The vaccination should be renewed every 10 years, but because of the severity of the outbreak, they recommended it be brought back to 5 years.
Right.
And many of these people are in remote communities.
Yep.
They don't have access to healthcare like you would in a city. And the other thing is, how many of you actually can remember the last time you got anything? So it's a bit of a problem. It's problematic. There needs to be the access, and it needs to be something that is, how would you say, every year, go out there and say, right, what does everyone need? Check their medical records and do it, rather than relying on them to make their way into a centre like Alice Springs and hope to goodness that there's, enough medical facility for them.
So what you're saying is not only is it the crowded conditions and low vaccination rates, but also I think what you're saying is it's a failure of public health.
Oh, look, it most certainly is. If I can give you a little bit of a background on what happened.
Please do. Please do.
So many years ago, when whites moved into that country and took up pastoral leases, the tribes that were there were either booted out or brought in to live in camps on the property to provide labour.
And when are we talking about?
We're talking right back at the start.
Right.
What's then happened is, and these people worked for nothing. They were given a certain amount of rations and that was it. When it became, through legislation and whatever, that they had to be paid, and in some cases back paid, they were booted off those properties. Now, where do they go? What they did is they headed in towards places like Alice Springs and formed these camps. They've got nowhere to go. They're placeless, homeless, whatever you want to call it.
They're displaced.
So these basically refugees in their own country. Now, these remote communities don't have the facilities. You would be shocked at the price of fresh fruit and vegetables and those sort of things.
Because, Martin, you spend time up there, don't you?
No, I haven't been up that far, but I have been out to, we've got communities here in Queensland, central Queensland, where I am.
Yeah.
Two of my daughter's partners, well, one separate, they're Indigenous, so the in-laws are there. They foster children from those communities, so I'm well aware of what it's like. The problem being that when someone comes in from a remote settlement to a place like Alice Springs to access medical care, where do they stay? And that's why you end up with houses in these little camps just outside of Alice Springs that have 20, 30, 40 people in them in a 3-bedroom home. You can't keep a place like that clean. You just can't do it. So there is a fertile breeding ground for these sort of diseases.
Yeah, absolutely. So what should we be doing? What should we be doing to sort of counter these sort of degraded places that people end up inhabiting?
See, this is the vexed question. We have imposed solutions that haven't worked. I think the first thing we need is to provide service in some way, shape or form where the people are, rather than expecting people to come to the service.
Mm.
And I think that's the first key. So, until we start looking at that, we're always going to have that clustering effect. And we see that throughout Queensland anyway. Small country towns, this is in our not the Indigenous population, the general population, lose services. They lose the doctor. They lose maternity units. They lose, well, you can't be diabetic in Western Central Queensland because you've got to come to the coast for dialysis, which severs you from your support network.
Wow.
And if you've got to go to dialysis for 5 hours a day, 3 days a week, you can't travel in for that. You've got to move. So then who looks after you? Where do you live? All of those things. And to be honest, if you want to look at the subsidy that the state government gives for travel and for accommodation for rural people that go there, it is a pittance. Now multiply that exponentially and apply it to our Indigenous community.
Yep.
It is just so much worse.
And may I say, off the back of that notion of trying to get sort of healthcare back into these communities, that at the same time as we know there's a severe shortage of doctors, we've got this highly ill-considered cry to cut immigration. But who are these so many of these immigrant doctors are the ones that will go in to a remote community, that will go into the, far northwest Queensland. And yet at the same time, we're saying, let's get rid of them, correct?
Look, I just about had a gutful of this, because if you look at even regional towns, in Mackay here, which is a relatively big centre, coastal centre, the majority of doctors are of different ethnicities.
Of course.
If we did not have them, you wouldn't get to a doctor. Go to a hospital. The majority of doctors are of differing ethnicities.
Yes, of course.
The pharmacists, the nurses,
everybody,
wardsmen, cleaners. It would not go into aged care, and there's an absolute classic. But I want to circle back a little bit. What you have in Indigenous communities, people that are relatively, and I don't mean this in any way as a criticism, they're relatively unsophisticated.
Yep.
Don't for 1 minute think that they can't access social media and that sort of thing. And when they see this volume of out-and-out lies with regard to vaccination and healthcare, they, let's be honest, their history with civilization has not been that rosy, has it?
And government.
So there's an added propensity to believe the misinformation.
The lies.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I mean, we were, to our listeners, Martin and I were going to be joined this evening by the Snarky Gherkin, our very good friend, but he's unfortunately can't attend, and that's a shame because we've had a week which we'll talk to again with Snarky, I think, later in the week, because it has been very, very interesting. But we have had a week, Martin and Snarky and I, where we have really tried to counter the anti-vaccination message. And I've had people, apart from the sort of virulent, vile, disgusting stuff that's been aimed at me, which sort of threw me backwards for a bit. Martin kept ringing me, doing a welfare check, going, are you all right? I was like, yeah, but man, oh man, these people are, wow, they're vicious. But apart from that, there's also people that sort of come on and make comments on social media around the lines of, like, look, vaccinate, don't vaccinate. Why can't we all just live and let people do whatever they want? Why does it have to be, such a big thing? Because this is why it has to be such a big thing, because it affects people's lives profoundly. That's why getting vaccinated is not a personal choice. It is a social choice. And this is what we're trying to get across. But man, the pushback on it has been incredible, hasn't it, Martin?
Look, you are dead right. And the reason I get so savage about it is it's beyond the point of them just being an oddity to laugh at.
Yeah.
This costs people's lives.
Oh, it's not funny. It's not funny.
We talk about people in remote communities. that are immunocompromised. Like, there are that many people within a kilometre of every one of us that are actually immunocompromised.
Yeah. And what does that mean for listeners?
Well, what it means is their immune system doesn't work. Well, in many cases, they can't be vaccinated. They rely on herd immunity for their safety. If we don't have it, these festering pieces of transport for viruses getting around are actually a death sentence for these people.
That's right.
The other thing is that when everything comes unstuck, the anti-vaxxers fly in to hospital at the drop of a hat.
Oh, 100%.
It's really funny. One that used to on social media all the time, the whole lot. We watched his lip grow with the cancer.
I know.
Tried all his salves and that. Where did he go when it finally? He went to hospital. Now, the whole big pharma thing, or big pharma wants you to stay crook, blah, blah, blah. That's nonsense, because pharmaceutical companies will make more money if you live longer.
Yes, of course.
Really will. They don't want you getting sick and dying.
No.
So, and the other thing is, if you look at the income that this so-called wellness industry, these are untested.
6 trillion.
Exactly. So don't use a pharmaceutical. Use my horse urine. It'll fix you.
It'll fix you. Untested. Oh. And, it's never going. It is just the industry is too big. It's too out of control. And the TGA is never, ever going to have the resources to have oversight over every single supplement that people use. I was just going to say, yeah, please.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
Malcolm Roberts wants to abolish the TGA.
Yeah, what's with him? Oh, for everybody that's not from Australia, we have a party in Australia, a very sort of savagely right-wing, sort of mad party called One Nation. And they're sort of rabidly anti-science and anti-immigrants and just sort of stupid. And Malcolm Roberts is one of their senators. He's a senator, isn't he, Roberts?
Yes.
Yeah. And what has he been saying, Martin?
Well, it's withdrawal from the World Economic Forum, withdrawal from the UN. But he's absolute classic. Let me run through a couple of things with Malcolm Roberts. So women that attempt suicide are attention seekers. That's one of his.
Yes, of course.
Straight out. The other one is that how do we address the population decline in Australia? We need more white women to have babies. Literally said it on an interview. Not Australian women, white women. So this is the calibre of this bloke, white women. Now, Malcolm Roberts, and now this is me as a physio. I watched him in a Senate, and honestly, he is painful in Senate committees. But watching him as a physio, Malcolm Roberts is showing the hand posture and the pill rolling movements of someone that has Parkinson's. So there's my prediction.
Well spotted. I'm not showing that, am I? I'm not showing that, am I?
What you have is straight inner phalanges with full flexion at the what do you call?
I'm showing Martin my hands.
Metaphalangeal joint, and you get like a pill rolling movement, like a movement like that.
Oh.
Malcolm Roberts is going to need more pharmaceutical and medical care than you can ever poke a stick at, and yet he wants to abolish the TGA.
And back to right at the beginning of when we discussed the fact that it's very, very difficult to get media attention on this issue, this terrible issue that's blighting the Indigenous communities, is that David and I live in an apartment in DY in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, and 2 weeks ago, this young man came home to his 13th floor apartment, and they have 2 dogs and one was missing, right? So then everyone was, where's the dog? How did it got out? It's a magic dog. What happened? Was the dog abducted? And then someone 3 days later got a drone out and found the dog. It had got squeezed through a tiny gap. What was the dog, David? It was a fox terrier, wasn't it? Squeezed out from the balcony, and it walked right around the building and then got stuck. It had been out there for 3 days. My point about telling that is that got more news coverage than you can poke a stick at. And even 2 days ago, Channel 7, Channel 9, they've been back continually interviewing the guy, following him around, looking at where it happened to the dog. It was massive news here in Sydney, and I think all across Australia. I mean, I'm the biggest dog lover on the planet. I mean, I love them. But man, talk about an inappropriate focus, and what is it that actually engages human beings' brains?
I totally agree. For me, it's always been, on a farm and that, humans first and then animals second. It doesn't mean that you don't treat animals well.
No.
But it means that you consider your fellow man with a certain amount of priority. Now, if we go back to the Northern Territory, as we were saying, diphtheria is not the only issue. There are other diseases there. And I'll be honest, syphilis is making a massive comeback everywhere,
really?
but especially in that Northern Territory. Now, I'm going to say something here. There was no syphilis in Aboriginal communities before white folk turned up.
Oh, of course not.
So there you go. For everyone that wants to blame them for their sexual behaviour and all of that sort of thing, there are babies being born with congenital syphilis. People need to look into how bad that is. These are just a couple of the diseases that are that are up there. Where is it? It rates a mention every so often, and then we're talking things that can destroy people, communities, societies, and yet it's ignored for a dog that gets caught on a high-rise in DY.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a human brain propensity. It's a critical thinking issue. As soon as something becomes ubiquitous, it no longer engages the human brain. What we like is something new and different. David, what's that cognitive bias? No, it's the normalcy is the dog, but what is the thing that sorry? Novelty. The brain loves novelty. And also, the human brain, and this is what happens, and it's why it's so difficult for charities to actually get traction, is that we cannot imagine a big number. So you talk about a whole number of deaths and the brain just shuts down. But you talk about, and this is what charities have cottoned onto, which is why they talk about one child in a community with an obstacle that the child has to overcome, and a child has a name and a family, because the human brain is very tribal. So then it latches onto that, and we start to care. As soon as we talk about a large number, unfortunately, the human brain, the shutter just comes down. So, and what we need to do in terms of public health is understand that propensity of the human brain to only want to look at something that is novel and singular and try and engage it, because it's disastrous that we don't care.
I think that's exactly why we have the swimming pools and the Sydney harbours. That's 400 Olympic swimming pools. That's so many Sydney harbours, because people don't understand the actual quantum of it. I always think about, and I tried this on one of my clips when we talked about the number of dead, and I said average height, if you laid them end on end, it would run, and it's horrific. I talked about loading them in the back of a truck, a tipper truck, and how many truckloads of dead bodies and that sort of thing, because people just brush over it.
They can't comprehend it.
It's a completely different topic. But when you talk about 100,000 dead in Gaza, 100,000 people.
Yep.
But I want to kick back a little bit to our primary topic, the whole vaccination thing. What always gets me is how these people that are anti-vax aren't just anti-vax. They pick up on everything. All these different things, chemtrails, this, that. It's all a massive conspiracy.
Yeah.
And they say they don't believe in viruses. Viruses don't exist.
The earth is flat.
Yeah. When you talk about more people died from the Spanish flu than actually died in the conflict of the First World War. They just flatly believe it didn't exist. Now
they probably don't believe in the war.
Don't be spoiling people that don't believe in the Holocaust.
I know. I know.
But the worrying thing is that they've got this idea that, I've got this immune system, it's perfect.
Oh, God.
Now they're trying to boost it with all their hocus pocus and whatever. I use the analogy, if pick whatever sport you want, but preferably one that is a little bit violent. Let's talk about boxing. If you've got to go out and you've got to box, if you train before it, if all of a sudden someone said, you've got to get out there, you've got 3 months, 6 months, and you train. Now, when you actually get in the ring, you may not win. You're still going to cop a flogging, but at least you're not going to get killed.
Yep.
If you go in cold, no training, no nothing, it's going to be booked. That's it. End of story. You're gone. Vaccination is like that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't supplant your immune system. What it does, it gives it a tiny taste of what it's likely to cop down the road.
It primes it, right? It primes
training.
It's right.
And when people talk about the side effects of vaccination, and yes, there are some side effects, very minimal, that are serious.
Very rare.
Most side effects are merely a small dose of what you would get in truckloads if you got the virus.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend Kate Thomas, who's the very, very smart pharmacist, people talk about, I use supplements because there's just no side effects and I feel fine. If there's no side effects, there's no effect. If you want an effect, you've got to have a side effect. That is the nature. That is the balance of the whole thing, right? Effect, side effect.
What people don't understand, well, no, they refuse to understand. I won't say don't. As soon as they see a certain thing, it's dangerous. Oh, there's that in a vaccine, you can't have it. Toxicity is dose related.
That's right.
It's not substance related.
That's right.
Like, I just fail to see how people can't see that. Drink enough water, you will die.
Yep.
If you have oxygen that is too pure, you will die. Do you know what I mean? So
100%.
This idea that, it's got this in it.
Mercury or something.
This is the classic, people that as soon as they hear a certain word, it's danger signs. There are variances in the type of chemical that may very well have a similar name. And unless you're willing to go and have a look or trust someone whose whole life has revolved around this sort of thing, if you've never cooked before, would you try and cook
Chateaubriand? If you'd never cooked before, right?
Well,
you're going to do it.
I was going to say, would you try and cook a chocolate cake with no recipe or anything like that?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
things together? Can you imagine what you'd get? What you would do is you would call someone that has expert experience.
So that's right. So we know, we know that this is a problem. It is a failure of critical thinking, a failure to understand that they are being caught up in the cognitive flaws in their brains. It's very broad brushstroke thinking. It has no nuance to it, and it's frankly not very smart. It was funny that when they were calling me out this week, they were all going me, that they constantly referred to how stupid I was. And how dare I have something, this is the anti-vaxxers, and I've got a podcast called Why Smart Women, and yet I'm really stupid and not smart at all, which sort of brings it back to this, and I think you've renamed the Dunning-Kruger effect.
The Dunning-Kruger effect, yeah.
Yeah, and you want to explain to the listeners, because not everyone's from Australia.
Well, there was an individual that was actually too racist for One Nation and for the Catters, and he got up into the Senate, a fellow called, what was his name, Fraser Anning.
Yeah, Fraser Anning.
Now, he is currently every so often on social media spewing his bile. And I can't exactly remember what it was he said because it's a litany of garbage. But in one particular thing, it was just so stupid.
Yeah.
And he's got such a serious look on his face when he did it. And someone said, that's That's
A
an
Dunning-Kruger.
example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And I said,
Yeah.
no, that's the Anning-Kruger effect. So, yes, Fraser Anning, just yet another one of these, these people that just live on hate.
Yeah.
Look, if nothing else of this podcast gets through, I just want to say a couple of things.
Sure.
Viruses are real.
Yeah. Okay.
They can kill you, and they've killed lots of people in the past.
Yeah.
When you have increased populations of anything, the ability of a virus to do damage is hugely increased. You'll notice that we live cheek by jowl in many cases. We rely on, as you said, we rely on our whole society to do things to keep us safe. Road rules, there's a classic.
Yeah.
And vaccination works. It truly works.
Yep.
Do you think, see, I always talk about the big hole in Central Australia theory. You know, where they talk about, and the same mob, the anti-vaxxers and all that, about how all doctors are in on it.
Oh,
right?
yeah, on
the big conspiracy. Now, at what stage of their medical training are they let in on the big secret?
Yeah, which stage?
You know, hey, guys, we actually don't cure people. We try and make people sick.
We kill them.
Now, one would think, and ages ago I did the numbers, I've forgotten, but let's say there's 10,000 medical students a year in Australia. Let's just say, even if 1% said, hey, I don't want to play, right? I don't want to play.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of the big conspiracy.
Yeah.
So 1% of 10,000 is 100 people every year.
Yeah.
Where's the big hole in the middle of Australia they're burying the bodies in?
That's right.
Seriously, where is it?
Yeah, I know. It's like all conspiracies.
Think about that worldwide. The number of doctors trained worldwide.
Yeah.
And this is so ridiculous. What are the people that come in to tell them about the big conspiracy wear? Like, do they wear hoods and cloaks? And seriously, like, this is how nonsensical it is. Try and picture that in your mind and come up with an image that doesn't make you laugh.
I know, it's hilarious.
It is.
Yeah, it doesn't make any it doesn't make any sense. And as they, you know, it's like the no moon landing. What all those, you know, the amount of people over the last, 60, 80 years that have kept that secret, right? Do you know what I mean? The amount of people that are involved in these lies, not one, right? It's just insanity.
I love you dearly. I love David slightly more. But
I
if I happen to tell you, the three of us, something like I like to paint my nails every so often, this is not the granddaughters, this was me, I will guarantee you that at some point someone else will find out. It's just the way people are.
It's right.
So add the gherkin in, add a couple of other people in. What are the chances we keep it secret?
Yeah, it's zero. I'm a massive blabbermouth anyway. Come and say hello. It's
nonsense.
It's a nonsense. And here, listeners, is my delightful husband who's just plonked himself on the couch and actually sat on the dog.
G'day, Marty. Oh, look, I'm going well. I'm going well. I feel so much more solid after listening to this conversation.
Yeah, we're so awesome.
Last half hour, and honestly, no, it's great to hear the voices saying, some of this isn't funny, and it just shouldn't be allowed. And yeah, I love the strength that you bring to putting up that boundary that needs to go up. So thank you.
Unless we start to push back. Yeah. See, what is happening is nice people tend to be quiet. Right? They don't want to offend people. You've spoken to me before about this avoiding conflict. And I was at a meeting where doctors said, by our very nature, we're non-confrontational.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, if we keep going with that, people will die.
Yeah.
And I believe, because I'm not nice, so I get out there and say stuff. And what it does is so many people that have just kept quiet for so long, all of a sudden realise they're not the only ones. And I got really heartened. I put a couple of posts up today.
I saw them.
And one character had a lash
Yep. I saw that.
And there are about 20 different replies, and all of them carried elements of the facts and data that I put out before. There's another one that was an absolute classic on another site. You know, the one about, I'm sorry to go off topic, but it's all misinformation. You know, there's so many Muslim refugees in the world. No Muslim country takes refugees. That's just an out-and-out lie. Muslim countries take more refugees than the rest of the world combined.
I hadn't even heard of that. I've never heard of that.
It keeps cycling through the ether. So I got on, there's a site from the US, and it's followed by a couple of million people, and he keeps putting out this racist sort of stuff. And there's Australian people that share this, and I get on and basically say it's a lie, and if you share a lie, you're a liar.
Yep.
Simple as that. Now, on that one in particular, I thought I'm going to cop a flogging here. I come back a couple of hours later, hit the button, and every one of them were talking about the different Muslim countries and how many refugees they took. Now, that in itself, to me, is wonderful, because I'll guarantee you 6 months ago, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. One bloke actually said, and kudos to him, literally, oh, for God's sake, how many more times have we got to refute this utter garbage?
He's learnt well from the master, Martin. He's learnt well from you.
But I didn't reply to him, but in my mind, and I hope that he listens to this podcast, in my mind I said, well, mate, probably 1,000 times.
Yeah, 1,000 times.
But let's just keep going at it.
I'm glad you're saying this, Martin, because I was, after the vitriol that I copped this week, and I was saying to David in the car today, because you've got to keep questioning, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because we're not really going for the rusted on. We're going for the people and then what did you say? Because it was quite accurate, I thought, when I asked you. You said because someone has to be out there countering the lies. Otherwise, the lies they're out there for all to see.
We need to raise the standard for people to gather around.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Run the flag up the mast, bugger it. Let's run the Jolly Roger up and go at these people. Because ultimately, if there is silence, something will fill that void.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's what you were saying, wasn't it?
If it's them, where are we going to be? It could be one of my grandchildren that, as I said, okay, whooping cough, pertussis. They can't get their vaccination until 8 weeks old. Someone goes trooping through a hospital, as happened to a friend of mine years ago, trooping through a hospital, spreads it, and the child dies. I have treated children when I was at Camperdown Children's for a short period before it moved, children with respiratory issues. And it is horrific when you see a baby's stomach pull in almost to their spine trying to get a breath, and they're bright purple. And this is the sort of thing, these are the images that I bring to mind. And I'm going to swear when I'm talking to these assholes.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but I have been beside too many people struggling for life over the years because of this bullshit. Simple as that.
Yeah, no, I think it's right. And we were talking about you today, David and I, about, because you have had prior to being a physiotherapist, you had a very, very high profile sporting career, and you did play for our country. And I think you're still in a way playing for it.
It's, I don't know, maybe I just meddle too much, but ultimately, if something needs to be said, why not say it?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I keep saying it, this idea that everyone is entitled to an opinion.
Oh, God, no.
Well, opinions are of differing value.
Yep.
And I've got to be honest, if you were to pick up two opinions and they look like peaches and one of them had maggots in it, what would you do with it?
Throw it away.
You'd throw it away because it's worthless.
Yeah.
And it's based on lies, on feelings. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Like,
my
feelings are
truth.
important.
It's
but
my
facts are
truth,
important.
right? That's what
Oh,
they say, my truth. Oh, I know, it's my truth. Well, as we know, up until the middle of the 18th, up until the middle or the beginning of the 19th century, I think our average lifespan was still, what was it, around 30 or 40?
Yeah, yeah. It would have been late 30s, early
Yeah,
40s or
and
something.
you know,
Average?
for most of the history of humanity, you know, when we had, you know, clean water, when we were eating organically, we were eating free range, our lifespan was still 30, 35 years. It's only increased in the last century because of the advances in science. Everything else is secondary. So we just have to keep backing the science, right?
I think infant mortality is the absolute classic. Just give me 1 second, Annie. Hang on.
All right. Yep.
Graph of infant mortality over the last 100 years in Australia.
Yep.
Well, actually, didn't give me a graph, but here it goes.
Yeah.
Infant mortality has declined by over 96%, dropping from roughly 82 deaths per 1,000 live births in the 1920s to an all-time low of approximately 2.623 deaths per 1,000. Now, if you want to go further back, it was even worse than that.
Oh, 100%.
When I'm looking up facts and data, I don't just Google. Google is my first stop.
Yep.
And then I go to the different sites and validate what I read on that. And look, it's always pretty close. Sometimes it's not right. But for people to say that immune systems kept people alive,
Oh,
like
my God.
the Black Plague in England, didn't it drop the English population or European population by 50%?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it did. Yeah, 100%. But that's when
There
they
are
all had
still
function.
mass graves
Yeah.
that they uncover full of body, like skeletons.
Yeah.
I
And,
just,
and they had functioning immune systems, right? Like, as we know, people keep saying, I've got a functioning immune system. And to your point, which we've talked about ad nauseum, you need to prime the immune system. But the thing is, we've now got revisionists in terms of history where people go, well, how do we know it happened? I wasn't there. You've got all that, which is like terrifying.
that is just, it's nonsense to think that a brain thinks that way is terrifying.
And common.
I see what people need to understand is we are at war, right? Viruses want to survive just as much as we want to survive. Bacteria, the same sort of thing. So what they do, and it's like using chemicals to spray different things. The organism, if you don't get a complete kill, the ones that survive that get a small dose actually start to develop an immunity, or their progeny does. Viruses are the same. They try and work out workarounds. So people that anti-flu vax, because I had the flu vax, but I still got the flu.
Idiot.
There are any number of viruses and strains that you can get. And what they do every year is they have an educated guess as to the most likely ones you can get.
Yep.
So, yes, at times they're not going to get it quite right. But I don't think people realise how many people die of the flu. I really don't.
I was going to say,
it's like the Grim Reaper every year.
Yeah.
Marty, when you sort of liken our battle with viruses and other pathogens as a war, it was a couple of generations ago that a generation of people who we really respect today got it into their heads that loose lips sink ships. They understood the danger of one person speaking, and I think what we've heard time and time again is that if you hope that all of humanity are going to have the same level of critical thinking and intelligence as some do, if you think that everyone's going to have a high standard, then you're likely to be disappointed. We kind of got to accept that that's the nature of the herd, so that these people who are using lies, that do have loose minds and therefore loose lips, yes, they are sinking ships. They are killing people, and boatloads of them. And
we've got to stop them.
The problem is, as I said, it's that ground between the two armies, right? You've got the deniers and you've got other people. If we don't take that no man's land, they will.
They will.
And that no man's land is populated by people that don't know. And it's our responsibility to tell them what the truth is and not let that garbage
Get legs.
Yeah, I just see, I talk about this all the time, but there's an element at the back of my brain that makes it itch that says, why have we even got to do this? It is so logical. But if you look at them, so many of these people are making money
Oh, yeah,
out
they're
of
grifters. They're
people's
grifters,
misery.
for sure,
Now,
for 100%.
the absolute classic, slight change of topic. People always say, all these years and all this medical research, and they haven't cured cancer yet.
Cancer. Oh, my God.
Well, the first thing is, cancer is like a blanket term.
For so many diseases.
Shoes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, shoes go everything from those high heel strappy numbers that I like to wear on a Saturday night to my work boots that I wear when I go to an industrial site. They've got nothing in common. Cancer's the same, but there are so many cancers that we have cured. The absolute classic, the most, I think, wonderful thing that ever happened was the Gardasil vaccination
Oh, yeah.
for young girls initially and then young boys for human
HPV.
papillomavirus.
Yeah.
And it is virtually wiped out cervical cancer in women.
Yep.
Like, what a wonderful thing. But you will notice that RFK Jr. and a number of others are throwing doubt on that vaccine.
Yeah, they are. They are. Well, of course, they're major grifters. They've got the childhood. What is it? The Childhood Protection Society or something. I should look it up. RFK and his cohort. And
that mob. Yeah,
that awful Joe McCullough. Anyway, we cannot get into that because we will be here for the next 5 hours just talking about all the things we hate. So, Martin Bella, thank you so much for coming on. We're sorry that the snarky gherkin couldn't join us, but hopefully we can get together at some time next week. So, to all my listeners, wherever you are in the world, stay safe, stay well, keep your critical thinking hats on. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.